Can Benjamin Cesco actually play on Saturday? That question alone should be enough to stop you scrolling, because if the answer is no, and honestly right now nobody knows, then Manchester United are walking into the Stadium of Light with a completely different attacking identity than the one that just tore Liverpool apart. And I don't think people are taking that seriously enough. We beat Liverpool 3-2, we're third in the table, Champions League football is confirmed, everything looks great on the surface. And fans are celebrating, rightfully so, genuinely. That was a massive result. But I'm sitting here watching the replays, watching Cesco limp off at half-time, watching the way he walked down that tunnel, and I'm thinking, wait. This could actually be a problem. Not a catastrophic problem, not a crisis, but a real, genuine tactical problem that changes how Carrick sets this team up on Saturday. And nobody is really talking about the depth of that. So let's talk about it. Because I'm Bella, this is Bella Mufc Analysis, and if you're new here, welcome. This channel is where we actually think about Manchester United, not just react, not just hype. We think, we dig, we question. And if that's the kind of content you want, hit subscribe right now, because we do this every single week. But first, let's get into it, because this is bigger than just one player being injured. Let's start with Cesco. And I want to be really precise here, because there's a difference between an injury update and understanding what the injury actually means tactically. Here's what we know. In the Liverpool game, Ibrahima Konate pushed Cesco hard into the advertising boards. Cesco had been carrying a shin problem already. The collision caught exactly that spot. Carrick said it himself after the game. He's been carrying it for some time. He got pushed and caught the bit that's been causing him problems. So this isn't a fresh injury out of nowhere. This is an aggravation of something that was already fragile. And for me, that makes it more concerning, not less. Because a fresh knock, you can assess it, you can tape it up, you can push a player through if they're willing. But an aggravation of an existing issue, that's a different conversation. That's the medical team looking at imaging. That's asking whether playing through it on Saturday creates a bigger risk for the last two games of the season as well. Forest and Brighton are still coming. The whole end of the campaign is still ahead of us. So think about that for a second. Even if Cesco is 50-50 for Saturday, even if he could potentially play, do you risk him? Do you put him out there for 90 minutes at the Stadium of Light when you've got 3 games left and you're trying to finish third? That's a real question. A genuinely difficult call for Carrick. Now here's the part one I want to get into, because people will say, well, we have other options, we have cover. Don't panic. And technically, yes, that's true. But here's what those people are missing. Benjamin Cesco isn't just a centre forward in this system. He's the engine of how Carrick builds forward in transition. He's the target, he's the hold-up. He's the movement that pulls defenders and creates lanes for Fernandes, for the wingers, for the late runners from midfield. When Cesco plays, and plays well, United's entire attacking shape functions differently than when he doesn't. He stretches the defensive line vertically. He wins second balls in the final third. He gives the midfielders a point of reference when United are trying to progress up the pitch under pressure. Remove that, remove him from the equation. And suddenly, the whole structure shifts. Without Cesco, Carrick probably goes to a different shape in the forward line, more rotation-based, more reliant on movement rather than physicality. And against a Sunderland side that, let's be honest, is well organised defensively and knows how to stay compact, that could actually make life harder, not easier. Sunderland are 12th, yes. 11 points clear of the drop, safe. But that doesn't mean this is a walkover. Safe teams at the end of the season can be really awkward opponents. There's no pressure on them. They play loose, they play free, they play for pride. And Le Briz has built a side this season that knows how to be hard to beat. Don't underestimate this fixture. I'm serious. Now, and this is where it gets really interesting, let's talk about Lisandro Martinez. Because his return this weekend is arguably as important as the Cesco doubt, maybe more important. And I think the way this conversation has been framed in the media is completely backwards. Everyone's talking about Martinez coming back like it's straightforward. He's been suspended. Suspension is done. He walks back in. Great. But it's not that simple, is it? Because while Martinez was serving that ban, the ban that the FA refused to overturn after the hair-pulling incident, by the way, which is still a conversation in itself, while he was out, Aidan Heaven stepped in. And Aidan Heaven didn't just cope. He performed admirably. Multiple times this season, Heaven has been called upon to cover at centre-back, and every time he's risen to it. So now Carrick has a selection headache that isn't really being acknowledged. Do you bring Martinez straight back into the starting 11? Does his quality automatically mean he starts? Or do you reward Heaven for what he's done? And here's my honest take. For me, and this is purely opinion, I could be completely wrong. I think Carrick starts Martinez. Because at this stage of the season, with the final push, with Champions League already confirmed but third place still to cement, you want your most experienced centre-backs on that pitch. Maguire, Martinez, that's a settled partnership. That's the pair that gives you defensive solidity that Heaven deserves to be recognised. He deserves to be acknowledged. And if I'm Carrick, I'm finding a way to make sure that player knows his value to this squad, even if he drops to the bench on Saturday. Because players remember how they're treated in these moments, especially young players, especially ones who've consistently delivered when called upon. Tell me what you think in the comments. Would you start Heaven over Martinez? I genuinely want to know, because I can see both sides of this and it's not a simple answer. Now let's move to something that I think might be the most underreported storyline of this entire run-in. And I say that knowing there's a lot of noise right now about the end of the season. Bruno Fernandes has 19 assists. 19. He needs 2 more in 3 games to break the single-season Premier League assist record, to move past Thierry Henry and Kevin De Bruyne and own that record alone. Think about what that means. Think about what that would mean for Bruno personally, for his legacy at this club, for the way his season gets remembered. Because let's not forget, the first half of this season under Amorim was a disaster, not just for the club, but for Bruno individually. He looked disjointed, he looked frustrated, he looked like a player who couldn't express himself in the system. And then Carrick came in and everything changed. And now, in the closing weeks, Bruno is chasing history. That's a narrative, that's a real, meaningful football narrative. And it adds a completely different layer to these last 3 games. Because when you know your captain is 2 assists from making history, every single decision he makes on the pitch carries extra weight. Does he take risks? Does he try to create when maybe he should shoot? Does the pressure of the record affect his game, or does it elevate him? For me, and I genuinely believe this, players like Bruno don't shrink under that pressure. They rise. That's who he is. He's built for big moments. He's built for stakes. And the way he's been playing under Carrick, the confidence he's carrying right now, I think he's going to get those assists. I think he's going to break that record. But the question is when? And whether Saturday against Sunderland is the moment. Now, I want to come back to Cesco for a second, because I said earlier that his absence changes the attacking structure, but I want to go one level deeper on that. Here's what I've been thinking about. When Sesko plays centrally, Fernandes has a natural forward reference. He can play off the striker, receive, turn, distribute. The forward line essentially allows Bruno to play deeper in the build-up and still arrive late into dangerous positions. That balance is quite elegant in the way Carrick has structured it. Without Sesko, if he genuinely can't go, United probably have to rely more heavily on positional fluidity from the front 3, which puts more creative responsibility on Fernandes himself. Which means Bruno is going to be the one trying to unlock the Sunderland backline directly, more pressure on him, more responsibility, which could actually mean he gets more opportunities to register those assists, or it could mean he gets crowded out because every defender knows exactly who the main threat is. Sunderland won't be naive. They'll have watched the Liverpool game. They'll know how United's attacks build. And the first thing any intelligent defensive setup does when a key striker is missing is adjust their defensive line and their press to account for the different shape. This is why the Cesco question isn't just about goals, it's about how the whole attacking ecosystem functions. And I think that's being massively underestimated in the conversation around this game. But here's the thing, and I want to be balanced here, Carrick has shown this season that he can adapt. That's actually one of the most impressive things about how he's managed these final months. He doesn't rigidly stick to one shape when the personnel doesn't fit. He reads the players he has available and builds the game plan around them. So if Sesko is out, I do trust Carrick to find a solution. I'm not saying it falls apart without him. I'm saying it becomes harder, it becomes a different challenge, and the margin for error narrows against a team like Sunderland, who under Lebris have been excellent at staying compact and winning the ball back in midfield. That narrower margin matters. Now let's zoom out, because this injury news doesn't exist in isolation. It exists within a season that has been, and I want to say this carefully, one of the most emotionally complex United seasons in a long time. We started this campaign badly under Amorim, playing a system that didn't fit the players, losing matches we shouldn't have been losing. The atmosphere at Old Trafford was tense, the fan base was fractured. There were genuine conversations about what direction this club was heading in. And then Carrick came in and something shifted. Not just tactically, though that's real, that's visible, but emotionally. The players looked like they wanted to play again. They looked like they were enjoying their football. And results followed. 10 wins in 14 games under him, Champions League booked, 3rd place in reach. That turnaround is remarkable. It really is. And Cesco has been central to that. Not the only factor, not the only reason, but central to it. So the idea of going into these final 3 games with him as a doubt is a genuinely uncomfortable thought. And De Ligt, I have to mention De Ligt because I think sometimes his story gets lost in the noise. 22 Premier League games missed. 22, that's not a knock. That's not a short-term problem. That's almost the entire second half of the season, and there's still no return date, still no clarity on when or whether he comes back this season. I genuinely feel for Matthijs de Ligt as a player because he was rock solid in those opening 13 games. He was part of the reason United's defence looked stable early on and then gone. And the way these things work with back injuries especially, you never quite know. You never quite know if it's days away from resolution or months away. The medical team probably doesn't even know with full certainty. That's the nature of back problems. For United as a club for next season, for the Champions League campaign, de Ligt being fully fit and available is massive. There's too good a centre-back to have spending months on the treatment table. That needs to be the priority in the summer, making sure he comes back right, not rushed. But for Saturday, he's out. Simple as that. He's not part of the equation, right? Let me tell you my honest verdict on this game. I think United win. I think they win comfortably, actually. And I know that might sound contradictory given everything I've just said about Cesco and the tactical questions, but here's my reasoning. Carrick's side is in form, rail form. The kind of form where confidence becomes its own force. When a team is winning, when they believe in the manager, when they know what they're doing, they find ways, even without key players. Even in difficult environments, the Stadium of Light is going to be loud. Sunderland's fans are incredible and they deserve credit for getting their club back to the top flight. It won't be a quiet ground. It won't be easy, but I think United handle it. I think Fernandes runs the game. I think Martinez comes back in and looks composed. And I think even if Sesko starts on the bench or is assessed right up until kickoff, whoever plays in that central role does enough. But, and this is the honest, uncomfortable but, if Sesko is out, the margin is thinner, the performance might be less fluid, the win might be harder fought. And that matters when you're thinking about momentum going into Forest and Brighton. This isn't just about 3 points on Saturday, it's about how you arrive at the final 2 games of the season. What shape are you in? What confidence are you carrying? Who's fit? Who's fresh? Who's firing? And that's why I'm watching Cesco's situation so closely this week. That's why I want Carrick's press conference. That's why every update from Carrington this week matters. Because at this stage of the season, when the stakes are about finishing the job, about ending this campaign on the right note, about building momentum into what should be a massive European season next year, every detail counts. Every detail. And I think that's actually the bigger picture here, beyond Saturday, beyond even the final 3 games. When Manchester United are going back into the Champions League next season, well, we don't fully know yet what the managerial situation looks like beyond the summer, and that's a whole separate conversation. But whoever is in the dugout, this squad needs to arrive at pre-season healthy. De Ligt needs to be right, Cesco needs to be right, Martinez needs to be right. Because you cannot go into European nights, proper European nights against top sides, with question marks over your first choice striker and a centre-back who hasn't played in months. The summer, the pre-season preparation, the medical work over the next few months, that might actually be the most important period for this club in terms of what next year looks like. I've been saying this for a while. The squad has real quality, real genuine top-level quality, but squad depth, fitness and availability, that's been the recurring issue. And if they can solve that, if they can arrive at next season with everyone sharp and available, then honestly, I think we could be talking about a genuine top 4 run in the Premier League and a real Champions League push simultaneously. That's not hype. That's a realistic reading of what this squad is capable of when it's functioning properly. But they have to stay healthy. That's the condition. That's the thing that keeps getting in the way. Right, Saturday, Stadium of Light, Cesco assessed, Martinez back, Bruno chasing history. That's the game. That's the story. I'll be covering it fully, injury updates through the week, reaction after the match, the full breakdown. So if you haven't already, subscribe. Drop a comment telling me what you think. Does Cesco start? Does Martinez deserve to walk straight back in? And can Bruno actually break that assist record this weekend? Let's talk about it. I'll see you in the next one.